If everybody could introduce themselves around, that would be a good start.
I'm Shelley Hall.
I'm Harriet Chamberlain.
I'm Carol Beckman.
I'm Linda Strom.
Brian Barnes.
I'm 4 Eggers. I'm the town attorney.
Tim Holloman, Town Manager. And if I would, if you've not clicked, if you're speaking, if make sure your green light on is when you're speaking. Thought you were coming.
You want to introduce yourself?
First item.
All right, well, I love being in this position. I would like to turn it over to whoever wants to run this meeting. I am not prepared, obviously. Adoption of the agenda, which is in front of you, and new business.
Madam Chair, at our last meeting, we had a background discussion as far as where the ordinance was, what the state law provided and allowed us to do, some of what our restrictions on what we could not do. And we've also, I believe, received or exchanged some emails, and from those email discussions, I've taken a stab at a very rough draft of a potential ordinance that could go to council that you have before you. As I said, it's a very rough draft. I've not gone through to organize the components of it. You'll probably find typographical errors, grammatical structures, but wanted to have that before you to look at. The whereas clauses are not things that get codified. That's simply background information. Generally, that's in there in case someone wishes to challenge our ordinance for why did you do this or why did you do that. It provides some context for what our reasoning is behind what we actually adopt. The language that would be codified is in section 1 under the, if you find the paragraph in bold that says now therefore be it ordained by the town council, that language is what becomes codified. The first part is a policy statement that I've carried forward from the existing ordinance and simply broken it apart from golf carts and utility vehicles rather than consider them both as carts, because I believe part of the discussion was whether we wish to regulate utility vehicles in a manner different than golf carts. So, but I've essentially carried forward the policy statement from the 2003 statement that was done by the town council. In section 7202, I've dedicated that to definitions, and have essentially just used the definitions from the motor vehicle chapter of the North Carolina General Statutes. I set forth the definition of a golf cart and a utility vehicle so that it'll be readily available for the town staff to have those definitions in case someone wishes to question them, but generally just adopted the definitions that are applicable to the motor vehicle section. 7203 is dedicated to regulation of golf carts, and I've attempted to err on the side of including language and keeping language for your consideration. You may wish to strike through some or all or any of these things as to that language that's included. We did not have much discussion as to the regulation of the utility vehicles, so I've simply copied the golf cart regulations into 72.04 for the regulation of the utility vehicles section. And again, this is simply to help facilitate discussion. As many of you know, I try to be very mindful that my role is to provide legal advice, and I guess in this case act as the scrivener for drafting things on your behalf. But as far as the policy decisions of whether something is a good idea or a bad idea, that certainly is within your role, and what you decide to recommend to council should certainly reflect what you believe to be the best arrangements for Beach Mountain.
Has everybody had a chance to look this over? Because it came via email a couple of days ago.
Right.
Any discussion on that?
I've got a couple of questions. First question is, and I missed the other meeting, but I've gotten a sense from the emails that I thought the consensus of the group was sort of to allow golf carts on all town roads, so why are we still?
I'm not sure if there was a unified consensus. I believe there was some discussion. That's why it's easier for me to take a pen and strike through rather than delete and then
And those are the same roads we had before.
All I did was leave those in the same roads as before. I did leave the prior language that's listed as a strike-through that just said on any
Right.
town roads.
Okay.
That way, both options are available, and certainly whatever the committee decides or what the majority wishes for it to be, I can certainly change that.
On 7204, that's the current utility vehicle ordinance, right?
Currently, utility vehicles and golf carts are regulated exactly the same. So 7204 would be a brand-new section dedicated to
But
utilities.
but it's the same.
All I did was copy them over.
Okay. I
You
mean,
just
we don't want-
duplicated the language. that-
Right. I mean,
So-
the whole point it being that the reason the council amended the ordinance before was to make sure we don't have these utility vehicles running around on town roads. And the sense of that ordinance that part of the ordinance has not changed in this draft. Is that right?
Correct. I am mindful that, and I believe the sense of this committee would be that you probably wish to have more stringent restrictions on utility vehicles than
Right.
perhaps golf carts.
Right. The other
So-
thing you looked at was the horn. Looking it up, the standard seems to be around 95 decibels at 20 feet for a car. So maybe that's, I don't know if
No,
that's
some of those
workable for
suggestions,
golf carts or not. but-
yeah, some of the suggestions I made in my email about safety would really go on the inspection form, not in the ordinance.
Right, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
actually.
because that way the police would have kind of a checklist that they could go through. Does it have the lights in their working order and the way they work? And does it have the reflectors? Does it have the rear view mirror? And the horn would be an add-on now. Those are pretty loud. I don't know if you've heard cart horns, but they're not gonna be the decibel level of a car, I don't think.
I got a decibel meter on my phone, we can test it out.
And
You go right
for
ahead.
the form to be enforceable by the police department, it needs to, anything you wish, if the police are going to enforce it, it needs to be part of the
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay.
So that's why I did carry those forward so that they can take the ordinance and prepare their checklist from the
Oh,
ordinance.
okay. So you did include some of those suggestions about the rear view mirror. Well, that was already in there.
Yes, sir. And
That
I
was, yeah,
did
Yeah, that's
include
all.
reflectors, brake lights that operate independently,
okay, okay.
language related to daylight hour operation.
When yesterday, driving on the Parkway in that soup we
That
were in,
fog.
the fog, all I kept thinking of was
Golf.
a golf cart without a light on the back of it. You
Yeah.
know, without daylight running lights.
I mean, cars were driving without lights and you
Yeah.
couldn't see them. So,
Exactly.
you need
So
the
many
light.
cars are automatic, and that you don't pick up the dark, so it doesn't turn on the lights. So
Right, you need the lights.
I'm almost saying mandatory running lights on golf carts all the time, if they're on the road.
Right.
Is that where we are?
I'm also curious about section I. I think that needs to be worded a little bit differently.
Where's that, first where?
I, on occupants less than 16 years of age may ride a cart on town roads if they're playing golf.
I circled that one.
We need to
Yeah,
modify that one a little bit.
We should remove the if they are playing golf.
right.
How about we go through this a little bit more in order, everybody, and make their comments, and then we do their striking and
That would
discussion and go from there? Would that work?
It's a good idea.
Instead of jumping around.
Sure.
Thanks, Urs, though. Those are good.
So wouldn't we start with 7203 then? Probably.
Regulation of golf.
On the preamble findings or the general reasons as to why we're doing this, which are the whereas
Whereas.
clauses, are there any changes or any additional clauses? Some of these I think we may want to remove,
What
but
would be
again,
your
I just
success?
carried these from the last version.
So we need to start at the beginning.
Yeah. that
And
sounds
some
like
of
we
them
do.
are just set forth the legal background.
All right, let's just go through them. I'll read through them as fast as I can. Whereas the town of Beech Mountain is a resort and family-oriented. That's good. We're okay with that first statement. Number of residents, property owners, and renters. Whereas the town of Beech Mountain desires to maintain high standard for the quality life of its citizens, visitors, and guests. Whereas North Carolina State provides a city shall have general authority and control over public streets, sidewalks, alleys, bridges, and other ways of public passage within its corporate limits, except to the extent that authority and control over certain streets and bridges is vested by the Board of Transportation. All good?
Yeah.
And some of these which just recite the legal standards.
Right, notwithstanding
We
the
can
provisions
go through
of da-da-da-da,
That hasn't changed, I don't think, whereas.
the town of Beech Mountain may by ordinance regulate the operation of golf carts and utility, which we are doing now, specify the persons authorized to operate the carts and utility vehicles. The session law was amended and reaffirmed to include other municipalities, da-da-da, that's not anything to do with this. Whereas the town of Beech Mountain Town Council passed an ordinance codified as such to the town of Beech Mountain Code of Ordinances, established public policy for the town of Beech Mountain, as well as rules and regulations for the operation of golf carts and utility vehicles.
So that would change if we added 72.03.04, correct?
We will later add those,
Okay.
But let's make
You're
a
doing a
note on that.
chronological order.
Let's just, my point is, let's make a note on that so that we're there to make that change.
But don't we need to include the other one they passed?
I think it would be good to include the 2018 version.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Was it
that-
28,
Yes, it was
was it in
2018.
2018? Okay.
yes.
So where is that 2018 version written?
It's
we
not,
got
but
it with-
I'll
You need
update
to add
this.
I gotcha.
You got a copy of it last
Last
time, but it's referencing this.
It's in here, okay. Whereas North Carolina General Statute, da-da-da, allows cities and towns to regulate the operation of golf carts upon public streets within the municipality. The town of Beech Mountain has established a golf cart committee to further explore and investigate balancing the public safety concerns previously expressed by the town council with the utility and convenience for its citizens. Town of Beech Mountain finds the use of utility vehicles on town-maintained streets and trails constitutes as public safety concern and the benefit of allowing, hang on here. Use for the purposes outweighed by the safety concerns. The town council has received public comment on this issue, including comments from Avery County Emergency Medical Technician Josh Lerner as to the dangers of operating utility vehicles upon roadways which are not compatible for utility vehicle travel. Whereas the mountainous and winding nature of the road system on the town of Beech Mountain is incompatible with general utility vehicle use on the road system. Whereas utility vehicle travel, except as limited to certain streets, is not compatible with the master development plan of the town of Beech Mountain, including the need to protect the beauty, charm, and lifestyle of the town of the Beech Mountain as a retirement community. All right, whereas, utility vehicle, okay, this is the definition then. A motor vehicle that is designed for off-road use, used for general maintenance, security, agricultural, or horticultural purposes. Utility vehicle does not include an all-terrain vehicle or golf cart, as defined in this section, or a riding lawnmower. There's not many of them on Beech Mountain. Riding lawnmowers.
I don't know any.
All-terrain vehicle, yeah, you're allowing, here it basically says it does not
It
include
does not
all-terrain
include an
vehicles.
ATV, so
No.
that, so this ordinance would not address ATVs
ATVs.
And generally,
unless we wanted to.
generally ATVs are not allowed on public roadways, by my understanding.
Can you-
I need to
They're not
clarify.
required
You cannot license an ATV even in Tennessee? Okay, good. All right, so we're covered there.
UTV is different.
Okay, all right, so we're covered if, okay.
Tennessee, for some reason, are not doing their due diligence as far as looking at the UTVs to see what they're actually giving a registration for. I have run across one other problem. There's one individual in Tennessee right now that has had his UTV changed from a UTV to being registered as a dune buggy. He has
A what V?
full-size-
A dune buggy.
A dune buggy.
Uh-huh.
He's a little far.
And he has a full-size registration plate that you put on a regular vehicle, street road tires, the whole 9 yards. I hope he doesn't come up here because that's going to be a whole nother battle.
But he can't, that wouldn't be off-road. He wouldn't take that on a trail.
Well, he'd be a dune buggy.
I mean, you'd think it would work on a trail?
Oh, yeah.
By separate ordinance, we've restricted the use
Well, I
of
know.
trails.
Right, no, but I'm just thinking,
Yeah, it's still the UTV that we were seeing up here,
Right.
but he is just now got it registered as a dune buggy.
okay.
So we don't have to worry about then this part that says all-terrain vehicle.
I would not believe so.
Okay. A vehicle designed and manufactured for operation on a golf course for sporting and recreational purposes, and that is not capable of exceeding speeds of 20 miles per hour.
Didn't you say there's a new version that goes 25?
E-Z-GO, which also makes golf cars, makes a low-speed electric vehicle called a 2.5 that goes 25 miles an hour, but it's licensable in the state.
Okay,
And so that wouldn't be
not
covered by
considered a
the
golf
ordinance. I mean, anybody, Blowing Rock has a bunch of them. Blowing Rock also allows golf carts in part of their town. The people that buy the 2.5s are folks that can't comply with the town's ordinance for golf carts. So the 2.5 is then licensable and wouldn't be covered by this ordinance
Okay.
in any way. So anybody that has those, we have a couple members that have them. I don't think either of the members that have them have a state license on them, and they both live on the golf course and don't drive them on the road.
But you said they were harder to play golf out of.
They are difficult to, I mean, it has seatbelts in it, has windshield wipers, has a fixed windshield. The fixed windshield is at a slant that makes it difficult to get in and out of.
Okay.
It's not a comfortable vehicle to play golf from. It's more made to be a second car. I mean,
A resort extra vehicle.
right.
The
And
town,
there's other manufacturers that make low-speed electric vehicles, not just golf cart manufacturers,
right.
so.
So we're okay there so far. The town of Beech Mountain must appropriately tailor the appropriate regulations for golf carts and utility vehicles consistent with terms of section da-da-da. The findings set forth herein, the nature and condition of the town-owned roads, and the safety risks related to the interaction of motor vehicles, pedestrian, utility vehicles, and golf carts. Now there again, it says utility vehicles is in this writing.
Right, because it'll be, the way that Forrest drafting this, it'll be two different sections.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so that would come out, that's all I'm trying to say, is there's.
It would stay there because it's gonna be a separate section.
Separate section.
In the ordinance, if that's the direction we go.
The town of Beech Mountain is mindful of the rights of private property owners to utilize their own property as they deem appropriate, consistent with the rights and interests of the community, and the following ordinance amendments would not affect the use of golf carts or utility vehicles on private property. The town council for the town of Beech Mountain has considered public input on this issue of duly noticed and advertised public hearing on this issue in weighing the respective interests of all interested parties of the issue, on this issue, hereby enacts the following ordinance amendment, da-da-da. All right. So we're gonna go through these one by one, or? We're okay with whereases, basically, except for the notes, the two places.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so what did you say about this now therefore being ordained? You said that's where,
That's what would be,
This is the
This
new-
is,
Where we're changing.
these will become the rules, and generally, the final draft I'll propose to you will generally be a, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. That way, it's easier for
it's gotta be black and white.
the interpretation of the, of the police. So it's either they shall do this or they shall not do that.
Do you want me to continue to read, or would you all like to just read it?
The policy statement is essentially a restatement of the whereas clause.
And you may wish to update some of that language. Most of the language in this section is just carried forward from the original ordinance. You could leave it as it is if you wish. And essentially, a lot of this is, for lack of a better term, a disclaimer that says, we're not encouraging people to do this, we're just setting rules that if they do it, they can do this, but the liability remains upon the user.
And does that really happen? I mean, let's say Joe Blow is driving his golf cart with his 3 little kids in it, and they're all strapped in or in separate seats, whatever the requirement is, and he goes around a corner and runs into a deer or runs into another vehicle. And Joe Blow has deep pockets and decides he's going to sue the town. Even though it says there's no liability here, can he do it? Well, anybody can sue anybody.
Anybody can
Correct.
sue anybody.
Yes.
However,
And generally, we would have governmental immunity in most cases. However, it certainly is appropriate to have this just in the event that someone is looking for a policy statement of what have we encouraged or what have we not. Because although the odds are 99% that someone will not read this before they go operate a golf cart, it's implied that everyone knows what the law and what the ordinances are. And it's, for lack of a better term, a belt and suspenders approach to liability.
Even though the town has immunity, liability immunity, if that's what you said, don't people still try to sue the town and sometimes win?
Sometimes,
Okay.
yes. And it's more complicated than just the town has immunity, because there are situations that arise where that immunity's been waived. One of those issues is if the town purchases insurance, which the town does have an insurance policy that covers certain things. And the insurance company would like to be able to point to some of these disclaimers if someone does try and claim the town has some liability for their injuries.
But by buying excuse me.
Could the officers give the people a copy of this when they give them the permit?
No, I wouldn't recommend it. There's no need to.
Typically, the ordinance will be available, and when they fill out the permit form, certainly a copy of that ordinance will be available, but we're not going to, just because someone gets a permit doesn't mean that the person who got the permit is ultimately the one that's going to be operating the cart.
That's true.
So we could, but I don't think that's necessarily adds a whole lot to require that.
Doesn't mean they're gonna read it anyway.
Right.
Well, they're deemed to be of notice anyway. They're deemed to have read it anyway, so.
The only one I would say is F2, we might want to word that one differently. The original developer intended certain lots to be golf, quotes, lots. That deals, and I guess this would also deal with the question of whether or not we allow on all roads.
If you decide to allow them on all roads, I would certainly say to take that out. If you decide to restrict the roads, this is certainly a guiding
Right.
principle that if, for example, a judge who's not familiar with where Beach Mountain is or any of the background, it's nice for them to be able to get a feel for this rather than just on what a plaintiff's attorney might choose to cherry pick or put into a complaint, so they can
Right.
see what we were thinking.
So when we get to whether or not all roads,
Yes,
we
sir.
can
So this would
decide.
be a questionable.
So that'd be a question mark, right?
Yes, sir. I'll make a note of that.
And the definitions under 7202 you took right out of the,
Just matched what the General Assembly has done for the general statute.
which is what Chief Tim said, read to us last meeting.
Correct.
And so 7203 then starts a separate section that would just regulate golf carts, kind of like we talked about at our last meeting, right? It doesn't deal with utility vehicles in 72.03, correct?
Correct. And
So the first item we need to really decide is whether we're going to have limited roads or have all roads or have no roads. I don't know how you want to go about
Yeah.
making that decision.
Is it correct that these are the paved roads?
They're not paved
No,
roads.
they're not.
not necessarily.
These are the roads that I believe Chief Tim and his staff helped identify for the council when they passed their 2018.
Prior
Amendment.
to 2018, golf carts were allowed on any road.
Right.
And then in 2018, a list of roads was proposed and was adopted by council as being the only roads where those can be operated. And which option this committee feels is most appropriate is part of your charge.
Well, to get it on the table, I'll make a motion that we allow golf carts on all town roads.
Do I hear a second?
Now, you can second it, and it's okay, until it's all
Just-
approved.
just
you're
means we can then
you're just
discuss it.
discussing it. So don't feel like, yeah, once you second it.
doesn't mean you agree,
You're
just
not taking a vote.
just sort of a straw, you could certainly take a straw poll
Right.
rather than formal motions and
Okay.
seconds, just to see where the majority of the
I've got
committee-
Robert in my back pocket, sorry.
I'll withdraw my motion and we can take straw vote.
Yeah. What is everybody's feelings on the road situation and allowing golf carts on all roads or keep it segregated?
I mean, my
Or
concern-
no roads.
Or no
No
roads?
roads.
Exactly, or no roads.
Yeah, I mean, my concern still, having listened to council talk about this for a year, even if we were to recommend that, I don't think it's ever gonna get, they're never gonna approve that, because there's a strong sense that I've seen on council that they're really concerned about the safety issues on a lot of the roads. And I think that concern, I think, is gonna outweigh a recommendation from this committee that we allow on all roads. And I understand, again, having read some of the email traffic, I understand the rationale why some people want them on all roads. But I'm still inclined to think that what we really want to allow is people traveling to and from club facilities. And while I understand that's hard to enforce, that is, the people who are going to want to use golf carts want to use them to travel to and from club facilities, because there's really no other place they can go, because they can't go to Fred's, because it's a town road.
They can go to Buckeye, they can go to the lakes, they can go hiking.
Yeah. but
Well, that's
They can
all
go to
over the
trailheads.
mountain. That's not to just the club facilities, though.
That's my point.
Yeah,
My point is,
exactly.
it ought to be limited to club facilities. That way, we've restricted it down, and we've eliminated some of the safety problems. Whereas if you have a golf cart going down Pinnacle Ridge to Buckeye, or going down Lake Road, and Lake Road's gonna be a problem regardless. But if you have a golf cart coming around the corner going down to Buckeye Lake, and you meet a car coming the other direction, that's a recipe for,
A lot of this is concerning,
right.
all the roads.
Well, Lake is on this list.
I know it is. It almost has to be.
And
because they're
Chestnut's
close.
not, and I would rather take Chestnut than Lake Ledge or,
Or Lake Road.
Lake
going down.
Road,
Yeah,
any
but I
day.
think that's the part of the problem. I don't know how you deal with Lake Road. If you're gonna allow golf carts going to club facilities, I don't know how you deal with Lake Road. Because that's probably the most single dangerous road for golf carts that I can think of on this mountain. And I don't have a
but
solution.
then those that do ride it don't have a problem with it.
I drive it all the
I
time.
was just thinking Brian.
No, I know, but
He goes up and down it all the time. But what do you
Right.
do once you get to
What do
the
you
top
do?
of it? You just take Beach
I
Mountain
take
Parkway.
Rusty Gap and I get on the golf course. And have more.
When you come from your house, where do you go? Go to Northridge and that way?
Yeah, go down to the golf course at number 17
When you go to work, do you go to work in your golf cart?
sometimes.
So you're going down Charter Hill,
One down Beach Mountain Parkway.
going down Beach Mountain Parkway on your,
Turn left
on
on-
your golf cart?
which is
Turn
not on
left
this
on-
list, by the way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Well,
Ski
North
resort.
Pinnacle is, North Pinnacle's on the list, so.
Right. I mean, I noticed that. I was
Yeah.
curious from Raven and Hummingbird, how would you get to the golf course?
We can just go down to Arrowwood or Red.
Well, no, you gotta cross a section of
Right.
Yeah.
Beach
That
Mountain
little
Parkway.
section.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
little section of Beach.
Well, but you're still
That's
on the,
not state road. Joe.
They are.
yeah.
No.
That's not state road
State
back there, no. But that is not on the list. So the problem is are we making, my thought on this was, what if you live on Chestnut and you want a golf cart to go play golf? Well, you can't have one, because you can't
Yeah,
leave your home.
Chestnut should be on there. 'Cause it's a
It's
safer
not just
road.
Chestnut, that's just a usage,
If we're gonna go to road names, we need to add Chestnut, because it's easier to drive on Chestnut back and forth, and it's safer.
Here's my other
I
concern
think
about
it is.
opening up golf carts to the entire town. Do we then create a problem if we're still limiting UTVs to certain roads? Because we're clearly gonna continue to limit UTVs to certain roads for the reasons that the council has already amply stated.
As long as we have to have a rational basis for
That's
why,
my concern.
for why
What's the
we're
rational
doing.
basis?
Because the question that I will be asked if this gets challenged is, why are golf carts allowed here but utility vehicles are not, or vice versa? Because, and I need to have a good answer for that. So that's, I think, part of this discussion is, why are we separating things out the way that we're separating? Why have we chosen to handle it a certain way, rather than this is just what we picked out of a hat.
Well, some of it goes with the whole conversation behind electric carts versus gas. You know, well, electric carts are self-limiting in the ability to drive
Too
I
far.
mean, too far. When I lived on Birchwood and would drive to the golf course, if I drove a cart from Birchwood to the golf course, played 18 holes, oftentimes I'd have a hard time getting back to Birchwood. So that's roughly 8 miles that an electric cart can go. So when we talked about making them only electric carts, that would also kind of self-limit who could drive, where they could drive, and how long they could drive before they need to be recharged.
Apparently, there's a factual finding, though, that there's a danger of operating a utility vehicle on a roadway for which they're not compatible. So they're really not designed for on-road traffic, so that you do have a justification there for treating them differently than golf carts.
And certainly the noise of a utility vehicle is
Okay.
as a legitimate factor. One thing before I forget, Dr. Berg did send an email that he was unavailable for this meeting, but did say he wished to communicate his position that golf carts should either be fully permitted or fully restricted on town roads, regardless of intended destination. And he states this should avoid any discrimination for residents based on address and allow for our chief to effectively enforce the ordinance. So I told him I would communicate that to the committee.
Is
Since
there a
he was
problem
absent.
with tax-paying residents versus club members?
There is, you can't differentiate based on property ownership status or tax paying status. It has to be what is applicable for some, has to be applicable for others who are similarly situated.
I see it as a fairness issue. I don't think it's fair to have ordinances that kind of
Well,
apply
then,
only to the club and don't apply to.
if you're not a club member and you want, the only recreational area you could go to would be Buckeye. They want to go down there.
Coffee Lake,
But they want to go down there and exercise and play tennis, and that's the only town recreational area that they can go to, and you can't say, well, you can drive your golf cart on all the roads, but you can't go down to Buckeye. And that's,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that I think people should be able to
You're right,
go to
I
Sunset
mean,
Park and
so-
Emerald Outback and park and
so
drive.
let me ask you this, how many golf carts do you think that would be on our roads this year?
50,
How about next year?
50.
Well, the town of Blowing Rock, first year had 44, second year 100. Now, is there going to be a limit as to how many golf carts can actually drive on our road? So we could have 200. Can you imagine the traffic, the liability of the automobile people driving up here that have no experience?
They're supposed to be driving 25 miles an hour.
Well, it doesn't matter. They put on a turn signal when they go around a curve. And they can't read because it says slower traffic, stay right, so they can't read. So we've got a problem.
Part of, in Blowing Rock, speaking with some people that live over there, they like the golf carts because of parking.
But then the cars can't park.
Exactly, but they like it because they can get an easier parking space, smaller,
Because they
shorter.
can go to downtown.
Right.
No, I've never seen a golf cart
No.
downtown.
They go in the backside, come in the back
Now,
way.
part of the town's long-range plan is to provide a walking corridor that goes from over in the field here, even up to the Bark Park, all the way down to the ski resort. And for a lot of reasons, we're having difficulty getting much beyond Fred's. But the planning board has talked about, and others of us have talked about, an avenue that would go on the ski resort property from the end of the street, is it Christie Way right behind Fred's? A paved path that would get to the resort village that could be accessible also by golf carts, which would allow a golf cart to get up here to town without having to drive on the parkway. It would allow pedestrians, bicycles, and golf carts to make that trek. And for a lot of reasons, and it's in the strategic long-range planning document for the town, golf carts are being embraced, or have been embraced by the plans. The most recent survey, though, I'm not sure how it was supported.
I think it's 55% for golf carts. But
55%.
I think so. I hate to give
Well,
numbers
it
off the
depends
cuff,
on the
but-
age bracket too.
Yeah.
You know, 55 and older said no in the survey. But you can't, if you're gonna let 200 golf carts, I would say none.
Well, I don't
That
think-
would be, that's too much of a liability.
Here's the reality, and I'm rethinking my position. Here's the reality of it. Right now, most of the golf carts which are operating on town roads are doing so illegally because they're not inspected by the town. The safety issues and safety requirements that we would put in place with this ordinance are such that I think golf carts could safely be operated on city streets. And I think of the 200 that you're concerned about, 150 will never go through the process of being properly inspected, and those are the ones we'll be able to take off the road without further problem.
Well, they can say, you can't, we're gonna give you a ticket, but if you get the proper equipment on it, then you can drive. It doesn't matter. You can have, there should be, number one, I say no, there has to be a limit because for the
Well,
safety.
we can't put a number.
You can't limit them
We can't limit it that
because.
way.
The number,
Can't do it.
Because if you have 50 members that are members of the club, and you and I are on the same page, but if there's 50 members of the club that have golf carts and 5 new members join, they can't have a golf cart?
well,
You know,
I'm
so, I mean,
saying,
that-
but you can raise the limit to 100. That's the most that anybody can ever
Or
drive.
whatever number, yeah.
But just to be unlimited, I said no. Well, then there should be no carts on the,
I don't think you can legally put that kind of limit on it.
well, you can legally say no golf carts on the
That's
town,
true, But I
period.
think that's a mistake. And I'll now make the motion that we allow it on all town roads.
I'll second. Just,
Discussion.
but I would like to ask something, and the chief can disagree with me if he wants to. We've been kind of talking just to see, when you look at this, me and maybe Tim, Chief Barnett, I'm almost thinking you have to allow them on all roads, except if if you're on a road that you'd have to drive down Beach Mountain Parkway, you can't drive down the DOT portion, you'd have to only cross it. But I think from an enforcement standpoint, you're almost gonna have to go with all the roads. Personally, I've been down to the coast. I just have a personal block to see how golf carts can climb up certain areas, but that's a personal thing. That's not an enforcement thing. And then maybe if it's on all roads, you can't operate in foggy conditions even with lights. There may be some because, the fog and clouds are very thick up here sometimes, and I would hate for a golf cart to be in, so I don't know if Forest might have to do that. And I think instead of just having registration, I think we need to charge $100 a year permit or something that if people really want it.
It's 25 now.
I think we need to go, well, that's from an administrative standpoint, I think it needs to be, that would limit some too, that way, because you charge $100 a year permit,
If they really wanted to.
and two, for most people, that $100 a year, if they really want it, it's not gonna be, I don't know. You can disagree with that, I just wanna throw that out there for consideration.
Well, for speaking from someone who does it right, adding $75 to each one of the fleet vehicles that we get inspected correctly would be a burden, a little bit of a burden. I think it's unnecessary to the club. And again, we're not doing it for the 60 cars that we ran out as part of our fleet that never leave the property. But having some fee, if it needs to go up, that's reasonable.
Last time Chief said that they can't stop a vehicle to ask where it's going, but can you stop to see if they have a permit?
Is it not working? What's working? With us having the ordinance that governs the golf carts, yes, we could stop to do an investigative stop to see if they are up to code, if they are meeting all the requirements that they need, yes.
And one thing, Chief and I talked about this, whatever comes out of this, we will have strict enforcement. So we'll, any vehicle we see operating, we'll probably stop and check it. If it's parked in the parking lot, we can't tell where it's going to and from. but we might put some kind of sticker on there saying, you know, something you need to do. So there'll still be several things depending on how this turns out that we can do.
Use those stickers you had, they're the same color every single year, just the date changes on them, correct?
No,
They're not, okay.
that is just to indicate that that vehicle is registered.
Okay.
That's just a visual thing that we're going to have to help us key on to show that that vehicle has been registered. But again, excuse me, it's like anything else. Just like I said, we do have the ordinance. If it is strict, if it is tightened down even more, we can do an investigative stop to check to make sure that they are meeting all the requirements that they need for the ordinance.
And Chief Tim, you gave us two, we have the sticker on the windshield, but we also have a registration card.
Yes.
That specifically identifies the serial number of that vehicle.
Yes.
And that has to also be on the golf cart.
But that, you get re-registered every year,
Yes.
regardless.
Right.
Yes.
So if you had the same color sticker every year, you would not visually know that that vehicle,
The number on the sticker changes every year.
I'm talking just a visual. Guy goes by you, he's got the golf cart, and you go, that's last year's sticker.
The number changes every year. We'll be able to see that number.
You can see the number?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you go from 1 to 100 and then 200 up, whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
So you could stop them, say if we say you have to have running lights and they don't, you can stop them.
Yes, ma'am.
And then what happens? They drive in their golf cart home after you stop them?
It depends on the violation, and again, that's where officer discretion comes into play. If they're not meeting that, they can be given a verbal warning, they can be given a written warning, or if they want to talk themselves into getting a state citation, they can get that too.
But you're right, they can drive home, just like,
With the
Well,
with
but
the same
people-
violation that they were stopped for.
right, but we could be driving a car without a taillight working, and we can get a citation, and we can still drive our car home,
That's
is
correct.
my point. So they have to be able to get that rectified in a proper manner, and there really is, I mean, Richard Puck could make a fortune up here towing those things all over the place.
And again, that is an issue of officer discretion. In theory, if I have a tail light out and I'm driving home at night, the officer has the authority to say, you're not to get this car back on the road until it's either daylight or until you fix your tail light. I'd rather than not do that to me if that were the case, but it's within the officer's discretion to do that, and if I ignore him, he can write me another ticket.
And I guess discretion is too, if somebody's operating and the vehicle's faulty, if they're drinking and driving, that they're not gonna be able to drive home.
That's
You know, there's a-
Exactly.
You know, so that's,
And that can be a problem in golf carts too.
And my concern is about kids. Kids that look like they're 16, that aren't, that grandpa says, just take the golf cart. Well, they don't know what the rules are. They don't know where they can go. They don't know that they can't go to Fred's. I think that's my biggest concern is for the little kids, that even though the adults are responsible for them, kids aren't always, they don't always do what the adult says, so, you know, that's my big
Well,
concern.
one of the suggestions that we made after the last meeting was that we provide a list of any potential drivers at the point of making the application. I don't know if I don't think that got in here, but the reason I was asking would be so that, you know, when you apply, you're gonna say, you know, I can drive, my wife can drive. If I have any children that are old enough with a driver's license, I'd list them. But I wouldn't list, you know, any other names on there. And somebody that rents their home then wouldn't allow people to use the golf cart that might be in the garage because they wouldn't be on the list. So if the police stop,
The golf cart would have to be treated just like any other motor vehicle.
okay,
You'd have to have a licensed driver. Doesn't matter who they
That's
are,
it.
it has to be a licensed
so the
driver.
list wouldn't matter.
And I did not include that just on an
For that.
enforcement issue,
Okay.
because the chief is not going to be able to, or the officers necessarily know who
Who's
is
on the
on the
list.
list or who's
Who's
not.
All right.
But if they are stopped, they would have to produce a valid driver's license. And I think it's the same issue as if you have a 14-year-old driving down the highway, an officer thinks that person doesn't look like they're 16, that could be reasonable suspicion to stop the vehicle.
Okay.
Plus, they just don't have, you know, even a kid that doesn't have a driver's license, they don't have the experience to know what to do in the event of, you know, somebody coming around the corner too fast, or him, you know, tilting too far, or whatever, you know, I mean, it's not like they're on flat land here.
It's not like they have a seatbelt on either.
Yeah.
Remember, none of this is ever permanent. If it turns out, if in fact the council decides to go down this road, and they turn out, and we have problems, they can always say,
Well, in the past, haven't they put a limit on the area that can legally drive to the golf course and drive home?
well, the old ordinance
That's
before
the-
last year was to
Yes.
the golf course for purposes of playing golf.
That's right, and that's
And there
the way
were-
it should, that's the way it
And there
should
were
be.
multiple violations of it, and the police are not happy about having to determine the intent of the driver of the golf cart as to whether they're going to the golf course or not. And that's one of the driving forces to consider changing the ordinance, because we're putting them in a position where they have to make a determination of the intent of the driver.
So just to be clear, if we say all roads are permitted, then that eliminates the requirement that you're going to the golf course?
Yep,
Yes.
That-
yeah,
and that-
that, they can go
So then you put it
anywhere,
back either
they can
direction.
go
that is
anywhere they
proposed to
want to
be
go.
permitted.
They'll be all over the roads.
So let's go back to discussing whether you feel that there should be all roads.
Well, there's a motion.
Oh, there is a motion now, I forgot it was not withdrawn, okay, so that's our discussion, do we want to go to vote on this, or we want to continue discussion?
I'm through.
Now, I guess all roads excepting NCDOT roads, because people
Well,
do
that- that's a
Means
given.
council.
That's a given.
That's
Yeah.
given, yeah.
That's
Basically,
not-
from the ski resort that way.
You know, I have the same feelings on the safety, it bothers me, but I do believe that that is in the hands of the people who own the golf cart, to restrict that golf cart usage to people with a driver's license that are knowledgeable and understanding of a golf cart or a vehicle.
Well, let's start with the position that, or with the understanding that a lot of golf carts that are currently operated do not meet these requirements. And so if these requirements are passed, the people who are going to want to drive on city streets are going to have to upgrade specifically their golf carts in order to comply. Most golf carts do not comply with these requirements right now. So again, we are limiting.
What, I thought all of them were supposed to be licensed and checked, and how many of them did you check last year, Tim?
Bypassing the club, there was approximately 8.
And the club?
You inspected.
We do 23, 25.
5, something like that.
But the new regulations we put on that though, Harriet, we put on there, they had to have
Well,
lights and a horn.
This is what was, he was saying they weren't inspected. They haven't been inspected, but I just asked how many
No, no,
were
no.
on the road?
No, what I'm saying is most of the ones that have been operated on the roads are in violation because they have not been inspected.
Is that true?
I don't know.
But the answer is
Well,
yes,
if
because.
if there's 50
Seven-
on the,
Doing
if there's
25,
50 on the
eight.
mountain, he inspected 8, that
That's
means the
right.
rest of them
Well,
are in
but-
violation.
There were 50 or 51 that paid a trail fee at the golf club
Correct.
last year, meaning that they paid a fee so they could operate their own golf cart on the club's golf course. And not all of those carts have to drive on a road to get to the
Well,
golf course.
if they don't have to drive on the road, they don't have to.
So they don't have to be inspected
Right.
unless they are driven on the road.
Correct.
No, but they have to be inspected by the club.
They have to be inspected by
That's
us.
why that's 25 and that's 8. That can be the
We're
difference there.
51 and he's
No,
at.
51 in
Or
it.
whatever
Yeah.
you want.
But
Lost the
what I'm
number.
saying is most of those 51 do not have headlights,
Right.
do not have taillights, do not have the other, because they were operated on the golf course only.
Well,
That's my point. But
Okay.
if those people want to operate them on the street, they're going to have to put
Upgrade.
headlights on, they're gonna have to upgrade, and most of those people are not going to do that. That's why I don't think the problem is as large a problem potentially as people think it's going to be.
And the other thing, Carol, you were talking about the safety. I'm sort of thinking about my safety. So what if some person in a golf cart comes out or stops dead in the middle of the road and, you know, if
Sees
I
a
hit him,
deer.
it's my fault, but I mean, or just pulls out in front. I mean, I'm concerned about my safety as well as the safety of the people in the cart.
But that can happen in a car too.
It can.
But if
It
you're
can,
in a
but a
car-
golf cart is way less
I
protective.
thoroughly understand that, I do, I'm definitely,
Yeah.
And bicycles and pedestrians are less protected even than a golf
that's
cart.
right.
And they're all over the place now.
You know, I sent out an article, and I know it was about Tampa, Florida. It was, Jeff Epry sent it to me. And one of the things that I got out of that was, they're regulating those golf carts in these towns, and that is stopping people from even taking their golf carts on the road, because they don't want to pay that money, basically. But I do believe that we need signage if we're gonna have this. I don't want signs every corner that says, beware of golf cart, but we also have beware of bicyclists, beware of walkers. We've got dog walkers all the time.
Beware of deer and bears.
Deers and bears, that's right.
Look,
I mean, there's so many things that are in front of us.
Well, nobody should be going more than 20, 25 miles per hour on any place on the
I have a
state.
friend who, before she moved here, she lived in a gated community. They had golf cart paths
Everywhere.
everywhere. They had tunnels and bridges, so they didn't have to cross roads. She'd go to the grocery store in a golf cart, and they had their own dedicated patrol officers for golf carts, and they still had accidents. So you can't legislate everything.
More golf cart accidents happen on golf carts than happen on roads,
On the course.
on the course.
Yeah,
on
the
on
misleading
course.
part of that article that you sent out, gets quoted all the time, is the number of emergency room visits from a golf cart accident. Well, 98% of those are from a golf course, where the person had a rollover or an accident on a golf course, or ran into a tree, or
We had several of those last year.
right,
On our golf.
on our golf
On our
course.
golf course.
Yes,
You can't regulate stupid.
right.
Why put stupid on the road?
So then would we also eliminate the seasonal and the daylight?
I think there's
Issues
justification
as
for April to November and half hour before and half hour after sunset. Obviously, I think that because I wrote it, but, I think after dark, you all, obviously, the risk factors go up. Somebody forgets to turn their lights on, and now they're in a golf cart on the road without lights. I don't
So I
think
can't
that's,
go to a covered dish in my golf cart.
And drink the bottle of wine.
on Mondays in the summer, you would be able to. Right.
Well, it is gonna cause an issue with twilight a little bit, but that's what it's.
That's when all the deers come out too.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
twilight golf.
Well,
Yeah.
if it's done at
Thursday.
6:30 and you eat.
You could make it,
It's
I mean, I know
close.
we have some,
Yeah,
because we have some golfers who are right now properly licensed and they're driving, I mean, I know one, they're driving down halfway down Pinnacle Bridge,
Right.
regularly down and back, and they've never had a problem. They've been doing that for 10 years, so.
right.
Would they be people that but theirs is registered, obviously.
I think, I mentioned it to them last year.
Yeah, we have to, the safety issue is one, but also being the fairness issue or legal issue that we either do it for all, we do it for none. And I guess that's where we're at this point. We're either doing all the roads or we're not doing it at all.
Well,
Because
let's move to a vote so we can keep going through here.
Right.
I agree.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Wait, all in favor of including,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I ultimately made the motion, he seconded it, because he withdrew his motion. And then I remade the motion and he seconded it.
so the motion on the floor, would you repeat your motion?
The motion was that we remove the restriction in 72.04A and make it, that golf carts, I'm sorry,
72.03.
72.03A, and allow golf carts to be operated on all town roads.
Which would be reverting back to the original ordinance language.
Minus the to the golf course.
Right.
Right.
So it's going back to the original ordinance then,
No.
without this restriction? Okay, that's fine.
No, it would simply say golf carts can be driven on all town maintained roads, period.
Right.
With nothing, no mention of golf facilities. or-
Correct.
And so item B would be struck totally. The next sentence.
Yes, yes, I have
Correct.
item B
Yes,
and.
B is-
uh,
that's
So you
exactly
can
right.
go to golf cart now.
Exactly.
in your golf cart.
So did we have a vote?
We did not.
We did
All
not.
in favor? Say aye. All opposed? Did you write that down, Tamara? Thank you. Now, where do we go from there?
All right, so then, that would strike B, that would strike C.
Right.
And then you added in some additional.
And I suppose it's probably worth discussion. I've got it stricken to strike C just because that's one, I think that's the direction the committee wished to do, is that carts could be an alternative means of transportation. The other questions and enforcement, how does the chief or his officers make that determination?
So we have, rearview mirrors was in there before,
Right.
valid license was in there before. To the far right, yielding the right of way to overtaking vehicles was in there before. The inspection requirement was in there before. One person per seat was also part of the old ordinance. Then item I, we need to change.
Kids.
So is it our, we didn't talk about children riding in carts, we just talked about who could drive
Drive
the
it.
cart. This addresses occupants, not drivers. So
Well, I guess if you're gonna allow them to drive down to Buckeye, then they could be taking their kid to camp down there or whatever. As long as, I would hope they'd have a seatbelt.
Generally, golf carts, by my understanding, aren't required or don't have
They don't have
seatbelts.
seatbelts.
They do not.
Do we need to have?
And the littler the child, the less balance they have sitting in the golf cart.
it would seem to me like we could strike I.
I mean, again, the limiting factor is most golf carts have 2 seats.
Right.
Sure.
So you're only gonna be allowed to carry 1 passenger.
Yeah, for example, we don't allow more than 2 people to ride in a golf
It's a
cart
long
that
way
they
down
rent.
there. I drive it every day.
Well, yeah, it is.
6
It
miles.
it is, I know.
So
I'm
we
shocked.
really don't know who's
Well,
driving.
the golf cart, if he's saying it only goes 8.
Yeah, they're gonna be stuck.
They're gonna be stuck. You
Yeah.
have to put in a charging station.
Yeah,
Buckeye.
That's the next thing the town will do.
So Jay would,
that's the next thing they'll want the,
It is the consensus.
it'll be
Strike
want to
I.
do.
Strike I.
I think the consensus was to strike I. J was part of the old ordinance.
So is Jay staying in or coming out?
It would stay in.
JS.
Oh, state law should be,
Yeah.
yes, for sure.
K was unenforceable, I think, for the
And
chief.
K was stricken in the 2018 ordinance.
Okay.
Totally you can't push that around.
All right, this 15 mile per hour, my recommendation was to just let it be 20 because that's the definition of a golf cart. And does everybody understand what I said about the reason for minimum speed on an interstate? Is so that,
interstate.
yeah,
So if you don't hit the,
so that you don't hit the cars in front of you if they're going too slow. If we require the golf carts to go too slow, then it makes it easier for an overtaking vehicle to catch up and hit that vehicle.
Which would be the fault of the overtaking vehicle,
Yeah,
because you hit them from behind.
Not paying attention though, but
but if they if they slammed on brakes, a deer comes out and they slams on brakes in the middle of a road, it's just, you're,
So we would take out the 15 mile per hour.
15 mile per hour.
how many gas-powered carts do we still have on that?
There's some, but
Some private carts.
they're mostly aging out.
There's still a few though.
And they could still operate on the golf course
Right.
if they didn't drive on the roads.
And I think most of the people who own them are actually
Right.
on the golf course.
And one thing, just a suggestion from staff, I mean, I don't necessarily think we need to limit to just electric battery power. I mean, internal combustion engine, you won't have people buying golf carts and they just buy a golf cart and go, oh, now I can't drive on the road because it's gas powered. I mean, I don't know if you need to regulate. It can be any type of fuel. I mean,
The reason I
It's the noise again.
listed that was,
The noise,
the
yeah.
question is the
Noise.
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 Isn't that
Just for
ATV
discussion.
kind of thing?
It's not only noise, it's also,
Fumes.
They're noisy and
Fumes.
polluting because of the nature of the engine that they have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you if you want to try to leave it in. I mean, last year we were talking about UTVs, we also talked about motorcycles that made more noise than UTVs.
That's
and-
true.
Yeah, can we limit those?
but there's also gas-powered golf carts that I step on the gas and you don't get out of your own way. But if you step on an electric one, you're out of the way. So that's a safety thing. Another, again,
Restrictors, no, other than.
So you're saying your
takes a few
opinion,
minutes for that gas to get in there.
so your opinion, electric responds quicker than gas?
I think it is
Yes.
much
Oh,
golf
better
cart.
response.
Definitely,
Okay.
Much better.
yeah.
Well, then I guess leave it alone, that was just a question.
And they also go uphill much better.
Yeah, and all the new carts have an electric brake that'll, see, a gas cart, you can take it out of gear and it'll freewheel. An electric cart, no matter how hard you push on the pedal, it'll only go so fast, because it's governed by the motor and the control on the motor. Gas cart, you can put it in freewheel and go 50 miles an hour downhill, and they're not as safe. And some of my cleaning staff are guilty of that.
They tested it.
My problem with N is I don't know that you can actually get coverage like that, because I think the golf cart is included in a homeowner's general liability coverage. I don't think you can,
North Carolina general statute says liability insurance.
Automobile
Specifically?
liability.
so you can actually get a specific coverage for it? Okay, good. All right.
And the concern with the homeowner's policy is
Right.
that covers on-premises incidents, and we're
Okay.
talking about
Okay.
off-premises.
So they would actually have to get a separate, okay, good.
Yes, sir.
And automobile liability.
Wonderful, okay.
Because when Shelley gets hit by one, we're going to make sure they have liability.
Well,
You
hopefully,
better.
hopefully she won't kill the person that hit her.
So, starting with P, those are new things.
Right.
Headlights and taillights must be on at all times. Brake lights have to operate independently.
Well,
And
that's
then-
But
why.
they don't have to be a separate light, it's just a brighter light within the light.
Usually it's two bulbs, and one bulb comes on with the headlights and illuminates the red taillight. And
Do
the
all
sec-
golf carts have brake lights?
No,
No.
So they can't go on the road unless they put them on.
Right.
that's the whole point. And they don't have headlights.
So a lot of these people are not going to do that.
Right.
I got a side question just on that while we're talking about that. Would the club be interested in, maybe, there's a guy, Stephen Frank, that does videos. Would the club either pay for a video to be done and we broadcast it on all town things, or, because it would be I think it'd be nice to have a 3-minute video showing what a golf cart looks like that's equipped like this ordinance. But that has nothing to do with the ordinance. That's just saying, would the club consider helping us do a video so we could show people and post it, hey, this is what it looks like? I don't know. That's a side question. Just for
I mean, I don't see any reason we wouldn't be able to do that.
I mean, we've got some that comply. so
Right.
Right.
We easily have demonstration models available.
Even with the compliance with this new?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Except the horn, I've got to add horns.
Well, the horn is,
Yeah.
the horn's the easier one.
Anyway, I didn't mean to throw you off track there. I was just
Shall we say
thinking
more
that we need to somehow, it would be nice to post on the town website, hey, this is kind of what your golf cart has to be. Visual works a lot better than listening to that.
Well, it would be nice before even these people come up, if they know that this is what they need on their golf cart, they could probably start having somebody work on it or whatever. You know, Andy's going to be very busy.
So the daylight, everybody still agrees with half hour before.
You know what, only because of yesterday, is what I would say. They're not going to remember to turn them on if there's fog. And we're not going to put in a rule in here that if, it's up to you, because you can be, my house would be no fog and your house be so much fog, or other way around.
Yeah, but before, earlier in this ordinance, we're
It
saying
says they have to be
they have to be on no
Right,
matter
that's
what.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
so I think that's a good thing to have. I like that.
Is April through November reasonable?
Well, if you live up here year-round, if you want to use them in March or November, I mean, there's beautiful days that you could go down to Buckeye.
Like today.
Like today. It's a little
But how
chilly.
many times do you go down to Buckeye? I mean, in March, and all of a sudden you drive home and there's snow on the road.
Well, today would be a perfect
Perfect day.
example.
Yeah, I wrote that in there because of you, Ms. Harriet, because you had mentioned that you were worried that the golf carts would operate in the wintertime.
Well, no, you never said that. I mean, golf carts, I never thought they were going to be operated in the wintertime, except because I didn't think that, according to this, the town residents wouldn't even be able to have them.
But could you write an ordinance saying, if the weather's nice, you know, how do you do that?
Weather
You have to have a-
permitting.
But you
Well,
weather permitting in mind.
November has beautiful days,
Oh,
fall
of course
days.
it does.
I would suggest what Earth said earlier, if you recommend April through November, then that creates a problem 6 months or a year from now. We come back and extend the months, but I don't think we should make it based on what the weather is, because what I think is good weather is not what Brian thinks
That's
is good
what
weather.
I'm afraid of.
Probably unenforceable.
It's subjective.
I mean-
It's an enforcement issue.
Yeah.
But do we want to make, do you want to say March through November?
Yeah, that would be March through November. Because that eliminates December, January, February, which I don't think, I mean, there may, well, actually, we had some really nice days in February.
Gorgeous
Yeah.
days. No question about it.
Do we want a decibel number on the horns?
Loud,
So we're doing,
It's loud.
lots, lots of decibels.
We'll just do a test.
Well, I just kind of looked at it real quick. It looks like a lot of motorcycle horn, and I just choose that 130 decibels, 115. Looks
That's
like-
really loud.
Yeah, and keep in mind, decibels are a exponential scale, and they're also measured from a certain distance away.
You'd have to do a distance, you'd have to do a decibel and a distance in order to make it enforceable.
Now, on a car horn, the passenger vehicle is 100 to 110 decibels. A train horn has 130 to 150.
let's not go there.
I'm going to guess they're at least 85, the ones that I'm familiar with. It's a little push button that's foot operated. I mean, and then the little horn itself is just mounted behind one of the two front tires.
Right.
And so it's not under the cowling or anything. It's very audible, but
Let's just do a test. I mean, I don't think we have to decide that today. Let's just come up with a number. We can easily do a decibel test.
Chief Tim, do you have a suggestion on the decibels?
Personal opinion, I really don't see why you need a horn on a golf cart.
Too.
Warn the deer that you're coming.
No, the other day, I was going down Charter Hills, and here comes the truck around the curve on my side of the road. I slammed on brakes and set on my horn, and he looked up and moved over, that close. That's why the horn was really necessary in that instance.
80, not to exceed.
I think we should, if we're gonna allow them, I think we ought to make them have every bell, whistle, and buzzer on that golf cart
One more thing to make
to
them do.
make them do. I mean, you know,
Shelley's going out and getting one tomorrow.
no, I'm not.
You know, it might just be something on here, instead of actually trying to come up with the exact number, maybe appropriate industry standard for that vehicle. I mean, because we're looking at a sound chart over here from alarm clock is 80 decibels on it to a rock band is 110. And then, it goes more for lower and higher than that. But, you want it as allowed as an alarm clock.
Well, what is the industry standard for a golf cart horn? So, didn't you say 95?
95 is what I sort of came up with as the low end of a car horn. 95 at 20 feet.
But see, I'd rather have, so we don't have to buy a decibel meter, I'd rather just say
You can download
industry
an
standard.
app. You can download an app to your phone.
This is help from factory equipped.
Okay.
Doesn't require, it's a free app.
so if we just say a horn and don't say decibel and don't say, or we just say industry standard.
I think that's best, and then.
I'm not sure if there is an industry standard. If we say horn, it would be any noise.
Well, you
making
could get a
device.
bicycle horn.
You're right, that's,
If potentially that would pass. My concern is that I don't know if there is an industry standard for horns for golf carts.
Could you say not to exceed 115 decibels? You're not to exceed enough?
no, you're concerned about the lower end, not the higher end.
Yeah,
I knew golf carts that had big loud ones on purpose.
I'd say mechanically operated for sure, we'd have to say, because then you don't have a little clown's horn.
Mechanically
Or
operated?
New Year's Eve horn.
Yeah, because if you say horn, people
No.
are gonna take you literal.
No, it has to be a mechanical horn.
Or a trumpet.
What's the word for that? Is it mechanical horn? or-
Mechanically
Put
installed.
a decibel number on. I mean, what's the hard part about putting?
Yeah, but what
Well,
if they
the
have one of those
decibel,
foghorns?
loudness, and the type
That's
is,
got decibels. I think being mechanically installed or,
Yeah.
a part of it, the, you know,
The factory standard, whatever the
Why don't we,
manufacturer.
why don't we table that and come back, leave the horn in and then table how?
How
The
loud?
decibel, well, it's got the
How can you
decibel,
describe
How we're gonna
and how
describe
is it attached? Because you have to be able to get to it. I like the part
decibel,
where you're
loudness,
full,
and
you know.
type
And
is
that's
You know,
right.
question.
it might be simple
Right.
just to leave it, golf carts shall be equipped with a horn or mechanically operated horn, period. It's not even
I
trying
mean,
to
we're
get
not
in.
gonna legislate the lumens and the taillights, are we?
Yeah, so, I mean, I would suggest just move on with
Mechanically
that.
When you say
operated.
equipped with a horn, I mean, they could have a foghorn.
No.
Is that acceptable, or is
Well,
one
mechanically equipped, I guess,
mechanically
foghorn.
mechanically equipped? I don't know.
But now, we still have noise ordinances anyway, so if something that's like, you know, so our general noise ordinance, if they're above that, that would apply, I would think. You know, if they're going through a neighborhood honking a foghorn to wake people up, I mean, we're gonna write them a ticket for exceeding the noise ordinance.
The dogs do it in my neighborhood.
Well,
or disturbance or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So you don't have to come back to that, you just say golf cart shall be
So we're
equipped
not
with
gonna
a
say-
mechanically operated horn, period.
we'll look at what
Or
Ford comes back.
Okay.
That's exactly four. That's
All right.
four goes, lucky me.
And then the reflectors, is there a size standard that you would consider for yellow and, for the amber and the red?
I don't have a size preference, and I don't even know if there is a standard. I want to say that it's probably a 2-inch, at least a 2-inch reflector.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, they make tape that you can, we can do everybody's all one day, just come by, we'll take care of all of yours, we just cut 2 inches of tape off and put them on there.
Madam Chair, just to let you know, it is about 12 minutes after 3. We did say we were going to try to hold these to an hour and a half. So I don't know if you want to keep on going till 5 before, and I'll remind you. And if the group's so inclined, I mean, if you're
How do
feeling
you
on a
feel?
roll,
Maybe I think 15
you
more
may go a little bit
minutes.
longer because you may actually
Well,
cut.
The golf cart, I don't think we're gonna change the utility vehicle.
No, I don't
So,
either. The other thing is, Dr. Berg, in his statement, that he said that he was for it if we went to all roads. So basically, he would be a vote there, just,
Anyway, I'm not going to call time until 5 minutes before, but like I said, you're making such good progress, there's a chance that you may be able
we
to
can go through
finish
this.
up, have one
No,
more
no, you
meeting.
can't, you can't.
You can't.
He
say
can't
it.
vote?
He's
Oh, I
not
thought he
here.
wrote, and then he
He's
would
not
vote.
here.
Okay, then that's fine.
Yeah, he may be in favor.
I just
of
didn't
it,
want to
but I-
leave him out, that's all.
Right, right, right.
It's not that it makes any
He
change.
stated what he's in favor of, but
Right.
I don't change the.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
You're over there just shaking your head in that.
That's all, we were just saying.
So-
He won't be,
I
he won't be
agree with her.
for if you move on without him.
Yeah.
So we're basically done with the golf cart part.
so if we move on to 72.04, we would just remove any reference to golf carts,
Correct.
which Ford has already done. Leave all the roads in there like the town council had already approved, right?
Well, that's to stop the people from being able to drive back to
Well,
the,
yeah, I mean, it gets to our point.
right,
They're two different vehicles.
exactly.
Right. Now, I am a little intrigued in your 7204 setting the electrical only.
I think
I'm not
that's
sure.
probably something we'll need to change. Again,
I'm sure that
I just cut and pasted over just to have a set of things to look at.
But I think what we want to do is leave as much as possible, the wording that the council passed last year regarding the regulation of utility vehicles.
Right. So we would strike through on any town roads under the or.
Or on any town maintained roads.
Right.
Right.
We'd strike through that B, we'd strike through C like you already did.
Right.
Okay, we're keeping it the way it is now.
Strike through I. As far as speed limit on the UTVs, the council made it 15. Do we want to leave it alone? 50?
Well, but the same thing goes
That was
with
part of the
why
problem.
is there a minimum speed limit on a highway? Would be the same there and here. If a UTV is going 15 and the golf cart's going 20,
Right.
I can't imagine why we wouldn't put 20 there,
I mean, they're not supposed to exceed the speed limits of the town roads, right?
period.
So do we even need a speed limit for the UTV?
I would just leave it off, right?
So we would strike through L? And then you brought up electric battery powered. I don't know that there are any, but I bet there are. Because, I mean, there's electric powered fairway mowers now. And, I mean,
But remember,
I don't intend for M to only be electric. My understanding is most UTVs
or gas.
are, internal combustion powered.
Right.
I remember, here was the issue. The issue was these UTVs had a license plate from the state of Tennessee. So they were otherwise legal to operate on the road. And I'm not sure that some of these other limitations would have been enforceable anyway. And I think that's why the council went to the way they did, which is use road restrictions to regulate the problem.
Gotcha.
Well, but one of the thoughts might be to limit the roads even further on the UTV side.
Sure.
I think UTVs are more of a problem than golf carts.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Well, I don't even know why we're talking about this. I thought we were only talking about golf carts.
This committee is golf cart, but this happens to be an ordinance that included both.
Oh,
So we either have to strike it out and remove it, or make it tougher.
Previously, they were both regulated exactly the same, so
I got you.
that's why, since we're changing golf carts and separating them out, I think we'd just be sent right back here to say, you've done this half, but finish it.
Okay.
Why can't we simply, though, you take the existing ordinance, you now apply it strictly to utility vehicles, and now we've created a separate part for golf carts without adding all of these things for utility vehicles. They turned out to be unnecessary. I mean, we solved the problem without them, so why add them in now?
As far as changes to the utility,
To
the
the vehicle
order.
itself.
And essentially, if you keep what is already of record for
Right.
most of the previous things, yes, it just separates out the two, and the existing rules continue as to utility vehicles, and many of them date back to 2003.
Right, but the significant ones date to 2018, and they didn't include like N, O, P, Q, and those, because I don't think we need those for utility vehicles.
And certainly those are policy questions for you folks. So if you say that we don't need them, then you don't
Well,
need
no,
them.
we don't need them because they're not in the current ordinance, and we solved the problem of in the current ordinance without them. And because they're utility vehicles that are already licensed with the license tag, they already have these things included.
I would set the Tennessee license plate issue aside, because
Okay,
most utility vehicles, for example, if I live on the mountain and buy a utility vehicle, it would not have a Tennessee plate or a North Carolina license plate,
but you're not allowed to operate on a public road.
unless you
Unless,
regulate
yeah.
it to allow it. And,
All right.
and then we get to the question of what requirements would you require. And I believe
All right.
some of the discussion centered on businesses or other individuals that like to use utility vehicles to, in lieu of, say, a pickup truck, for some of the things that they did.
I mean, the club does, the fire department does, the police do not, the town does,
Of course,
I could just-
governments are exempt anyway.
government's exempt,
Yeah.
Fred's does, but his are golf carts, correct? And they're inspected.
I could see some of the lawn maintenance people that are working on homes that are, with the little mules on the back, those little things as well. But I don't know if they're gonna do that and leave them there, so that won't work.
All right, well, let's just leave them all in then. I mean, there's no harm in leaving them in. There's no downside.
I think you're just putting more stipulation on them, which is good. Give
Well-
them more reason to go, oh gosh, you know.
It would seem that L and M don't apply.
Right.
I took, yeah.
I do
So
think
it is-
L&M need to go.
So they don't have to be battery. Well, they're not gonna be, because even Fred's isn't battery.
No.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yesterday, in that thick pea soup, someone from Buckeye with one of the town had this big flashing yellow light on the top. I was like, I need that. I want that on the top.
They were taking the snow gun back down the hill yesterday, is
Oh.
what it was. That's what.
But it was great.
It's the yellow light from the snow gun, is what
No,
you
it's the
said?
yellow light from the ATV on top of it.
It's
They're taking the
perfect. It
snow
was,
gun.
and I almost think that that could work great on every UTV on the mountain. Then you know what kind of a vehicle it is coming at you.
So you're talking about
Safety.
maybe add something between P and Q to actually say you must have
A safety light.
If you're working, that's all.
yeah. What kind of light is that called? I know, you know, just like, I guess a
It's like the
roof
cop does.
a roof mounted,
You know when you-
mounted beacon.
Amber warning
Can
light.
I interject one thing here?
Yep.
There you go.
The UTVs, they're not allowed to be operated on town, state, or interstates. No roads whatsoever. They're not designed for vehicles to be
By
operated
statute,
by statute.
Okay, so why do we have them at all then?
because
Because you use them.
Because in statute, it is named in statute.
Well, and we specifically, under our local bill, have the authority to regulate utility vehicles. Unless you're talking about something else.
No.
But we can regulate to allow utility vehicles on our town roads if we choose to.
But if you do that, I'm just going back to last year. A lot of people are going to get upset because they did not like the UTVs at all. Because of the noise, the dust that they kicked up, and a lot of people just seen them to be unsafe. But following that, UTVs, I've done some more research, North Carolina will not recognize an out-of-state registration on any UTV.
All right, that's good.
So they have to be in North Carolina. So if they're gonna be on the road, they have to be licensed, as we said. So with their license, they're gonna have all these stipulations on them anyway.
It turns out I went to law school with the Assistant Attorney General with the motor vehicle section, and he and I have had discussions about.
okay, the guy could never get to be upfront on that. He said, so he gave you an opinion of that right now? Good.
Yes, sir, as to.
Wonderful.
And we also have our local bill that was passed after any reciprocity agreement, which presumptively would be the most recent and therefore the most controlling bit of law.
Okay, they would never opine that way last year, so I'm glad you've got it. You have it in writing?
In separate places, you have to put it together.
All right.
Of course,
So we don't really need it.
So where are we? Why do we need it then?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, if we, the whole reason it exists the way it did is because last year we couldn't get an opinion from the state saying we were not required to recognize those Tennessee plates. So if we're not required to recognize those Tennessee plates, we don't need to regulate UTVs. We can simply say they're not allowed.
They have to be in North Carolina
Granted,
plate,
but it
period.
goes right back to what you just said. I don't have it in black and white neither.
Well, as a,
But in the ordinance, I
Well,
do.
somebody does, don't they?
as,
Well, no, it's,
Don't they?
as a point, there were, although the dust and the noise was the major driving factor related to this, there were some comments that you received as to folks that wish to use utility vehicles for various other purposes.
So we can't restrict them just for business use, not for recreation or transportation?
You could potentially restrict them to commercial use only, or something related to that. We would need to have a reason as to why are we restricting it only to a business and not to recreational purposes. You potentially still run into the question of a UTV tours, or are those technically a business?
But that's
a
recreation.
commercial.
Yeah.
That's recreation.
Well, didn't we also?
It's his business, though.
UTVs, if people want to get to property they couldn't normally get to, no through traffic, we still, with the current ordinance, we allow UTVs to go on roads if it was local traffic only.
Correct.
Right, okay. So,
Well,
but
only
that,
on our list, we only have a certain list of certain roads where UTVs can go.
so if this committee decided to keep that list and add these restrictions, would that be the simplest thing?
I believe that is certainly an option.
Maybe change the roads to make them more restrictive.
you know, I would let whoever's the expert in that decide that. I mean, quite frankly, if Fred is operating a UTV, he's operating it illegally because he's on the state maintained part of the road.
But just,
He's not on the beach mountain.
but he just crosses it.
I know.
He's allowed to do that.
I know.
I mean, he really just runs the dump.
Right.
Chief, do you want to
Exempt, Fred.
look at the list of roads with your folks as to where they might safely be operated, make a recommendation for next meeting as to which list of roads UTVs can be on?
I like the list that's on there now, but in my opinion, I don't wanna see UTVs back on the map.
So how do we break it down to just being our choice of commercial businesses with,
You can't.
with being legal?
None of the clubs are UTVs.
Right,
Clubs
usually
are either-
golf carts.
They're classified as a golf cart and inspected, or they're classified farm use, which the police have no. Farm
So-
use is an entirely different
And what is Fred's?
category. Fred, I
Fred's is-
think, has a,
There's a
It's
golf cart and a UTV. No, golf,
Both of his is golf carts.
golf carts.
Yes.
But I think you said that the town and the fire department were already exempt.
exempt.
Yes.
So we just leave those two exempt and nobody else can
I
have
can't
them?
think of any other, I mean, here's the thing you could do, is just propose it as is, and if there is in fact a business out there that wants to operate a UTV on a town road, they can come to the public comment and say, I want to be exempt, and then,
For this reason and the
and then let
reason.
the council think about it at that point, because I don't know that there is anybody.
Propose it as is, meaning eliminate UTVs entirely from the code.
Except for
Completely.
those exempt?
Well, no, because
No,
that's
I
still,
thought he
still
meant
don't have it in writing.
He's saying as it's written right now.
As it's written,
Until we can actually get this whole issue of the license plate
Right.
thing in black and white from the state, I would say we keep the ordinance as is
I'm good with
and
that.
not reopen that can of worms.
That's good. But just take out L and M.
Taking that out.
Are you comfortable with the additional restrictions to match the golf carts, such as daylight hours?
Make
once
it
a-
be as nasty as it can be, yeah, go for
It's
it.
a lot
And you're
for-
keeping them less and less off the road. Do I have a motion for that? And we can move that on, move on?
So move.
Second.
All in favor of leaving the UTV ordinance the way it stands, 7204, exactly how it stands for right now?
Without.
Without L and M.
Without L and M. L and M. And the same with the B at the beginning, the B and C at the beginning,
Correct.
correct? Okay,
Yes,
all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
That's-
Against?
Okay,
Unanimous.
That's unanimous. And Madam Chair, one other issue as to a question of what this ordinance should deal with is the penalty. The reference that you see there to section 1101 is a civil fine. That's essentially a monetary ticket. It's not a criminal violation. So there are essentially three different ways that an ordinance can be enforced. One is through the civil side, where if someone violates this, the chief issues them a ticket that they don't have to go to criminal court for. It's just a fine, and then we go and collect it. Other ways we can enforce this is either as an infraction, which is a type of criminal violation that does not subject anyone to potential jail time, or it could be a class 3 misdemeanor, which carries up to a maximum of 20 days in jail. But those are the three options we would have as far as different penalties to recommend. You can recommend the ordinance include both civil and criminal, civil only, or civil and infraction.
Well, if it's a golf cart driver, what do they get?
It would be anything, any violation of this chapter,
Right, but you're talking about for both the UTV and the golf cart.
yes.
Thoughts, discussion?
I'd say a civil penalty.
It's a symbol, yeah.
Yeah.
And is there a way that we can escalate repeat offenders? If $100 first time, $250 the second, $500 the third,
Sounds
is
like the
that?
garbage.
The
Yeah.
civil penalty list does include up to a certain maximum fine, and also includes injunctive relief.
Okay.
So, and Chief, I have not asked you your opinion on enforcement mechanisms. I know it's your officers who are going to be enforcing this. Do they have a preference of including a criminal type remedy, or are they comfortable with writing a civil citation?
We're good with writing a town ordinance citation, civil. And after that, if they do decide to maybe violate again, they get a state citation where it's mandated they go to court.
If we're going to do that, we need to write that in though.
Okay.
Would that, are you talking about doing that as an infraction, or are you talking about doing that as a misdemeanor?
It can be done as an infraction.
Okay.
May I ask, is this this is to the driver of that vehicle or to the owner of that vehicle?
The driver.
Because that driver may not live on Beach Mountain, and how do you enforce that when they live in, South Carolina?
Because that golf cart is, again, falls under vehicle law, being on a public street or highway. The driver of that vehicle is in control of that vehicle. They're the ones that are solely responsible for anything that goes on with that vehicle. Registration,
Okay.
lights, everything.
Well, I was just thinking if you went after the owner
No.
has property, and then you can attach, but you have another way to go around it, okay?
Civil,
But I don't know that very well.
part of it depends upon what you're citing as a violation. Certainly failure to register would be something that could go towards the owner. So part of it depends upon what you're citing. As far as someone who comes here from out of state, if they're issued an infraction and they just ignore it and don't show up to court, the Department of Motor Vehicles talk a lot more than they used to, and North Carolina would send a note to whatever state's Department of Motor Vehicles to revoke their driver's license until they come take care of their citation, for criminal or infraction citations.
Good with that.
And once this is before the council, would, and let's say they adopt it just like it is, hunky-dory, will they send out something in the utility statements or something with the nuts and bolts of the ordinance? Or,
We could probably send out a one-pager in the utility bill and give them a link online if they want, but we could do a mailing. That's not
Yeah.
a problem.
And we will inform, through the clubs, associations, we can inform the people who own golf carts right now. I mean, we inform everybody, and that will include the people who own the golf carts. I mean, they're gonna know.
yeah,
And then inevitably, there might be somebody who doesn't know, because there's always somebody who doesn't know. We'll probably write a warning the first time, catch them on the road, so I don't really foresee that. We'll do an education process, but that's not gonna be a problem. I do have one more question, because y'all getting close to your little bit going over
We're
time.
already turned into, it's over.
I mentioned permits earlier, and I'd almost rather the permits not be established in the ordinance, but when I go to council recommending permits for next year, here's what I have in mind. To accommodate the club, have a fleet permit of $500, because right now you're paying $525. And like that would cover up to 25 vehicles.
Okay.
$500 fleet fine or fleet permit, and a $75 individual permit. And one reason I justify that is because if we go inspect all your carts in one day, it's easier for our officer.
Right.
But if we're inspecting onesie twosies, it takes more time to get the officer in, so that's not gonna be included in the ordinance. You may rent a permit, but when we set our permit fees, we'll set a fleet permit, golf cart inspection fee, and a individual permit, unless Ford tells me different.
You can do that under your fee schedule.
Okay, and that's what I'm talking about, fee
When
schedule.
it's adopted, we make reference to a fee schedule, and that can be included with the budget.
And so I just want to make sure there's consensus, nobody's really objecting to that.
Because the officer has to go there because they obviously can't drive the vehicle up here.
Exactly, but, and this justification, somebody says, why are you charging me more? Well, it's an individual service, not, one-stop service. Anyway, like I said, that's not in the ordinance, but that's what we'll go with the fees as far as permits. And that will eliminate some of the, $75, some people won't pay $75 to get a permit.
Does anybody feel we need another meeting for the 10th of April?
I think we need to meet one more time to see.
Okay.
Well, I would like
After you
to,
finish your thing.
I'm not going to go through all this, but I would like to got all the members, and you can take it at home to read. And I will have to say that, how many you need? I have observed that 5 of the 7 members are associated with the Beach Mountain Club. And I'm not sure that's a good representation of the entire mountain.
Well, this was open, though, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But this was open to
But,
anybody.
but, it was voted on the town council. The people that are here today had to go before the town council to be approved to be on this board.
Do you know whether there are other applicants?
Yeah. so
Is there
we'll-
anybody who needs one? I got one for
There were
Tim.
other No, I've got one, thank you.
How about Tamara?
she got one.
You got one? Everybody got one? Okay. Chief, you want one? How about you, Riley? Okay.
Madam
okay.
Chair, I would say maybe one more meeting is necessary, but I don't think a fourth meeting probably is. And our next meeting is supposed to be April 10th. We skip a week and come back the week after that.
We're not doing on April the 10th, okay.
We are, no, we
We
are.
Oh, we are.
We
We're
are
not
doing
doing-
April 10th.
We're not doing the last one.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know that yet.
We don't know that yet.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll have a
So you will not get
draft
this to
for
the
you,
council in April?
puts all this input together, and if you folks are
We have a-
comfortable with that, we can.
A 17th budget meeting,
Not, you can.
so there's a possibility they could
Okay.
put it, we've got some many budget meetings, they can actually put that on the agenda.
Okay, they can put it on the agenda, but
Yeah,
at
so
least they take a look at it the first time.
Yeah, and
before
if
setting
not,
public.
it will be in May, at the May meeting, which is actually accelerated this time, it's May 7th instead of the 14th.
Okay.
So we gotta cover, even we do it on April 17th, or we do it in the regular May meeting the 7th, that should be in time enough to,
Now, here's the other, just something that hasn't been mentioned for everybody here. The council also has the choice of when they choose to implement this. In other words, they could say, we're going to pass it, but it will not be implemented until next year. That's solely in their discretion. They can
Well, they
say-
can do anything they want to, yeah, they can make any decisions, yes.
No, no, but
They
as far
shouldn't
as when
implement
it's,
it until
Yeah.
the next century.
right, no, but I'm
They may
saying,
not accept it at all.
depending on
Yeah.
what happens this summer, it may go into effect next year, not this year. That's a decision they have to, I mean,
Well, that'll give everybody time to get
correct. Exactly.
legal.
Okay,
All good, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
we're done. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. So Shelley, you need to come down and row.
I know.
You know what's hurting me?